Well, we decided we would do something a little bit different for this talk. We are blessed to have Princess Gloria, Thurn, and Thaxis here, and we're going to have a little conversation. Now, I'm sorry we were a little delayed. It was a little difficult to get here, but we thank the police and everyone else that helped us here. I want to begin by saying I don't know how many of you know Princess Gloria's story. There's a great Vanity Fair article, New York Times. It's been covered again and again. But Princess Gloria was known as the punk rock princess, Princess TNT. And she lived I think, quite an exciting life. And was friends with Michael Jackson, Elton John, Andy Warhol, and lived a life that I think was at the top with all of the people that exhibit what is cool. And she has also stood up for the faith. And I think over the last few years especially, she has been someone who has been willing to devote her time, energy, and life for standing up for life and family. So my question to you is, with this interesting story, what is your view of the future of the family? How do you think that the family fits into your own experiences? And how do you defend the family with some of the folks that you've been in close contact with that don't necessarily share our views?
I think that the family is certainly worth fighting for. And if we listen to the speeches of today, and if we take all this in, we realize that actually, yes, the family is up for grabs. And I think that in the past, we've been taking things too normal. We have not realized that we have to fight for the things that are dear to us. And that's why it's good if we realize, if we don't individually and every one of us do everything to fight for our parents, for our grandparents, for our children, and if we don't live an example of what family should look like, yes, it's going to disappear. And once it's gone, it will be too late.
Now, in Europe, we have named this Congress Winds of Change because we're seeing a lot of good indications that Europe is not dead. We were having a conversation earlier at lunch, and I think that there's a view that in America and in other places that Western Europe has made certain decisions that maybe it can never come back from. But I think God has a way, and history has a way, of proving people wrong. That what everyone thought was inevitable doesn't always happen. And so we're seeing countries like Hungary stand up for the family. We're seeing different political parties emerge that are making the family a key part of what we're doing. It was just a few years ago, millions of people marched in the heart of France for marriage as the union of a man and a woman. And we're looking in from the outside and seeing this and saying, what's going on? What do you think the future of Europe looks like? Do you believe that there's a positive potential future for Western Europe?
So what I think is very positive for us is that something bad can turn into something extremely good. For example, the strong migration of Africa to Europe has a very good side because the African people still believe in family. And the African people still believe in faith. And so we are going to get influence, a very conservative, ground-rooted influence from Africa. And we can say, like the gentleman who was sitting there was saying, you can call African primitives, well, you can call us degenerates.
You're talking about, I just want everyone to know that Justin Majawa, a member of parliament and a dear friend from Malawi, was denied his, as he said, denied his boarding pass. And then on his second trip, he got a flat tire and was too late, but he persevered and he arrived here just before now because he was so dedicated to coming here. So Justin, thank you.
And as I said, I strongly believe in Africa. I'm very lucky because I have a home in Kenya. And I always say to my Kenyan friends, I come and stay with you as long as I can, because in Africa, the world is still okay.
Now, we hear often that all politics is personal, and you maintain friendships with folks that definitely don't share your views. What do you say at cocktail parties and other places that you're in New York City, you go to a cocktail party, those of us that believe marriage is the union of a man and a woman are not exactly the life of the party. What do you say to the folks that disagree with you?
It's always interesting to note that when you speak even with political adversaries, one-on-one, you will see that you are on the same page. I think that a lot of our society is ideologized today, and when they are in a group, there is a sort of a group dynamic that makes them go into lies, into a collective lie. But when you are alone with them, and when you speak normally, and you ask, how is your mother, and how is your father, they all know that at the bottom of their heart, they care about their family. So to go against the family and to promote a totally new concept goes against nature. And I always say it's ridiculous if we are so keen on having organic food on the table, which is grown organically. Why are we so persistent with growing apples organically if we are totally unorganic with humankind?
Now, obviously, you're in Germany, Regensburg, and by the way, thank you for inviting me to your castle and having us there and having a chance to see where you live, which is beautiful. But obviously, there are problems right now that especially the Catholic Church is facing in Germany and around the world. Do you want to comment briefly on what you think the most important problems are?
I think it lies within the human nature. Everybody wants to be liked and everybody wants to be popular. And of course, the church thinks it is better if they go along with the government and if they go along with the mainstream. And they don't realize that they are actually abandoning the gospel, and they are abandoning the Jesus Christ taught us. But they are so much into politics, and they are so much into pleasing the society and making maybe the front page of a wonderful magazine, that they basically sell out what is our faith. And I've always thought as a child already, and when I grew up, that it's always more interesting to be away from the mainstream and double check what the institutions say. I don't like what the politics and the mainstream says. I always like to question. And we were taught that at school because, of course, you know, the German history is a very terrible history. And we had a long phase of a very terrible regime that made everybody think likewise. So when my generation grew up, we were told at school to question what comes from the political elite, to question what comes from the mainstream. And I'm just a pupil of that time, and I'm questioning everything, and I see that a lot of the stuff that is advocated today is rubbish.
A lot of us who saw the evils of communism and saw how degrading it was for human dignity, spiritually, physically, economically, what we saw in basically the attack on what it means to be a human person. for a long time, the division was between East and West. The Cold War created mentality, and I think I was on this side in the 80s as a Ronald Reagan conservative, seeing everything that was going wrong in the Soviet Union. But now we're in a new time. The Soviet Union is no longer there, and there are some that still see the world through the lens of East and West. What do you think about this?
Well, it's obvious that every kind of war or every kind of fight is always nourished by an ideology. The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, all the revolution have an ideology behind. And if you look at today, you think, okay, what are the ideologies that are today making us want to do a revolution? And then you have to recognize that the anti-family ideology comes from the West. And what are we actually fighting? We do not have an enemy like we had before. Russia was the enemy, China is the enemy. It's very difficult today because these ideologies are sort of, the communism is finished. So now we have to really see that the real battle, the real honest battle, ideological battle, is not anymore between East and West. And that's why it's totally ridiculous to buy arms for billions of dollars. Because the fight that we have today, you cannot fight with arms and fighter jets and tanks, because it's the ideology that goes against the natural life of the human beings, of the family, of the core of the family. The ideology of the West is the danger. Our ideology is a big danger.
You know that one of the things that we were discussing earlier and that we've worked very hard to do is to unite people who are very different around this simple idea of the natural family. And that has created at times those that would be very critical of us, that would protest us. We have worked very hard to say, whatever your political party, whatever your nation, whatever your background, whatever your religion, if you believe in this truth of the family, we want you here. We want you to be a part. So, in distinction to this idea that we divide the world up, that people are enemies forever, there's this other idea that I think Pope Benedict made quite clear when he talked about the family is the path to peace. And what I see, what we're doing, is in all of the dialogue with all of the people that are here today, people from Africa, from Asia, from Russia, from Ukraine, from all over, even places that have been traditionally at war with one another, that we come together, we may disagree on geopolitics, but we unite together for the family. Do you agree? And what are your comments on the idea that this is the true path to peace?
That's exactly where the family, the World Congress family, is very important, because it is the only Congress that unites us all through all the barriers that the New World wants us to perceive. We like the family, we like our faith. We want to be together. We do not believe in East, West, North, South wars anymore. The war today is terrorism. You cannot fight that with tanks. And you don't need a plane to fight terrorism. The fight today is an ideology, the wrong ideology that destroys the family, that destroys the natural kern, how do you say, the natural source, the source of the human being, of a human, is family. And if you destroy that, that's when you make us into robots. That's when you make us into animals. And we can only show the world that there is no reason to fight each other, because we are all united with our faith, our Christian faith, or also the Muslim and Jewish faith, as long as we believe in the family.
Princess Gloria, it's been an honor to get to know you a little bit. It's been fun to spend time with you. Everyone, Princess Gloria has taken her time to come here. Let's give her a great round of applause for being willing to stand up for the truth.
Thank you very much.